Welcome back to. I'm sorry about this. Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun. Yep. Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun. Anime Review Episode 2. Now, you're probably thinking, Nick, why are you calling this an anime. Why are you refer to this episodes, parts, because it's based on manga? Well, here's the thing. This anime did recently air. It's still kind of in a way in the process of airing. It concluded its second season recently. And it was announced just 2 months ago that the series is getting a third season. Yep, a third season. When does it come out? Don't know. Because the second season came out roughly 2 years after the season ended. Actually, it was more like over a year ended. So this one, we're discussing the last 2 episodes of the Babyls Enrollment arc. Excuse me, yep. There are roughly two episodes for the story arc. There is Amori's Theory and First Love Marries. Now, these episodes have a lot of focus on her in these episodes. Rema does not really do a lot in these ones. I mean, the biggest thing he does is when they go to biology class, where the place itself looks very similar to, I would say, it reminds me a lot of biology class from the Harry Potter series. I mean, heck, their teacher looks exactly like it's almost a spitting image of Professor Sprout, except this woman's shorter and looks younger. I'd say about 20 years younger. And the whole thing with her revolves around plants. Now, her thing is, the way this biology class is structured, it's almost like these plants are basically trying to also kind of be like an art class, where they create various different plants, while in the case of Aruka, now, at the start of the episode, he is given a hell phone. Yes, simply put, it's the world's equivalent to a cell phone, which, appearance-wise, looks like a freaking taser. I am not kidding about this. This thing, very thin piece of metal that basically looks like a normal cell phone you would see in regular, it kind of reminds me of the, old, not like flip phones per se, but like the stuff you see in, landlines. That's what it seems like to me. But this one basically acts like a normal cell phone with a screen that has text messages. Surprisingly, it doesn't have video messages per se. But the thing is, the manga itself came out, I think it was just... Oh, how long ago was this manga? The very first chapter of the series came out just a few years ago. Yes. It was just just 4 years ago. And you're thinking, really? 4 years ago? And the first season aired just 2 years ago? Yeah. That's indeed true. So... Yeah, so, excuse me. The Sukon's president gets curious about Aruka, excuse me. Now, we did see her briefly up here in the first episode. She didn't do very much. I think she had a couple lines, but that's it. It's mostly just to introduce her for later. Now, we do see her in action where she beats up some thugs who one of them has got a baseball bat with nails on it. Now I'm thinking, a baseball bat, that is a human object. How the heck it got to frickin' Demon World, I have no idea. Maybe they borrow stuff from humans, I have no idea. And of course, they proceed to smash a window. So, Arame decides to beat the crap out of them, single-handedly, and decided to prove a point by kicking a wall in. To the outside, just to prove a point, if you want to break something, break a wall, not a window. So of course she has this thing the whole episode first episode of these two where she really wants to meet Iruma. She eventually does by pure accident, where he was cleaning up from the mess that he made from the sakura tree. Yes, he made a frickin' sakura tree in the class, which apparently has become very popular. They refer to it as a flower. It's a sakura tree, and typical stuff you see in anime. We have a sakura viewing ceremony in this series. Okay, and it's not set in modern Japan. Nope. It's Demon World. And you're probably thinking, okay, What was the last series they watched to actually have a sakura tree make an appearance? You probably would think, okay, would it be Rest of the World? Surprisingly, no. I think like the last one officially I watched this year. Let me look it up here, which had scenes with sakura trees. I would probably say it was maybe To Love You Darkness. Yeah, I think so. That's probably the last one I could think of, anyways. So he of course cleans to the mess, and of course he helps the janitors because basically he was one cause this, so he helps them out. And of course, as he burns it, despite he was asked to go home, and well, Clara decides to help out, but they both go home anyways. And of course, puts away the cleaning tools, and then boom, he runs into Azalea. Now, here's the thing about her. Before I get to basically this little meeting per se, we see her in her office. Yes, student con presidents in anime typically have their own office. Not the first one I've seen this happen. Like the Aztec War had this. Yes, this is very standard for a lot of Japanese anime, where the student council president, a lot of the time, who usually comes from a very wealthy family, tends to have their own office. So, apparently behind this bookcase, and this actually is the first time I've seen this for an anime, where we have another bookcase behind this one in a student council. Now, not the first time I've seen this in fiction. This is a common trope, even in American films. This is very popular. I always love this little thing. Well, behind this thing, we think, ooh, what's behind the bookshelves? What is it? A large collection of romance manga. Yes, seriously. That apparently is over 300 volumes. It's called First Love Memories. Which when I saw the cover, like, man, that art looked very similar to Vampire Knight. Yeah, it's very similar to that particular art style. Now, in case you're curious though, is there a single manga series to have that many volumes currently? The answer is no! There isn't! You probably would think JoJo might have, again, the fact it's published since the 80s. But he has it. I think the highest it's got, I was like about 130 volumes. But not over 300. I'm like, damn! It's like First Love Memories must have been publishing for a long time. Like, maybe this manga has been published since, I don't know, the 60s. And when, of course, now you see her reading it briefly, she, of course, can't understand the language because, here's the thing. Crunchyroll, when they dubbed this, they did not translate the manga and the anime. Oh, no, they did not do that. They'll translate the dubbing, but not the language. Yeah, surprisingly, it's in Japanese. And here's the thing. It's never pointed out that this is Japanese. Not even Iruma, when he sees, like, oh, I remember this series. Now, yes, he is very familiar with the series. In the manga, he's depicted as a fan. Which I'm like, what guy would be a fan of a romance manga? I mean, I've read a few, and I'm not really a big fan of romance manga. I mean, the only couple I've read, like, one I read was Quintessential Quintuples. That was an okay series because of schoolwork. Not the romance, and that was not that interesting. I don't mind romance in series, but not to the extent of what this looks like it does. Like, oh, apparently she had no idea what the heck even a date is when he was reading. Apparently, so he apparently knows what the series is. Now, it's mentioned in the anime that he worked as an assistant on the series. I'm like, okay. That's all good. That's a better explanation in the anime to mention he's a fan. Which, this change, I think is perfectly fine. I don't think anyone would have a problem with the fact that he worked as an assistant on this romance manga. So of course he would know basically what the whole thing is about. It's better than saying he was a fan. That probably, from a guy's perspective, that would be embarrassing. But in the case of a guy mentioning he worked as an assistant on this series, makes total sense. I personally would not mind it at all. I mean, I personally worked on manga per se, but yeah, if I found somebody working on manga I liked, I'm like, that's cool. Fantastic. So what does basically Rumi do? Of course, she had theorized that he was in fact a human because she knows humans exist. And does she report to him the fact because he read a couple passages of this manga? No! She proceeds to take him back to her office, to not have a chatting to the fact that he's a human. Oh no. As a matter of fact, here's something interesting though. She never tells him that she knows he is a human. She never tells him. That is interesting. So, basically, they proceed to have a reading conference. Well, basically where she eats sweets and he is reading portions of this manga. And I love the fact he's also basically playing the characters, even giving them actual voices. Like, if you're doing a live reading like this, yeah, that's basically a live reading, though it's for an audience of one. And you would normally do this. This is perfectly reasonable to do this. Give these characters actual voices. I mean, like, Kara does it all the time whenever he does his reviews whenever he does his comic book reviews for Top the Fourth Wall. He does this all the time. He gives all the people voices, per se, but sometimes, basically, the voices can actually start hurting people, basically, when you change your voice. Like, take, for example, me. Like, I can change the voice, no problem. Like, oh, look at me, I'm basically so happy. Yes, basically, it's all about the range of your voice whenever you change it. That's basically what it is. So she likes it, and I don't know how far he got with this thing. I'd say he probably, as long as he was there before he left, he probably basically did a reading of the entire volume. And apparently it looks like she was reading from the very first volume of the series. I'm like, okay, like, if a woman's into romance manga, fine. If you want to read this long particular manga, perfectly fine. If you're a guy, you would not read this stuff because this is not interesting. There's no action. Not much action from a guy perspective, per se. If I were to read a live reading of an actual manga, I read it for JoJo, one of the other manga I read. Not this romance manga. That's from my perspective as a guy. Okay? If anyone basically disagree with what I say, fine. Okay? Because I am not the really big fan of romance mangas. That's the thing. And my mom is a big fan of romance novels. She loves this stuff. Me, I'm not really into it because basically, well, I'm a guy. Simply put. So after reading for a while, and then of course, basically, later we see Irumi in a student council meeting, and then of course she decides to leave, and apparently she can intimidate the student council whenever she was like, hey, I'll be back soon. I try to tell people that at my work when I'll be back. Because that's basically, I think I've been gone for about 30 minutes or about half hour, for at least for like an hour. Even if I'm only gone for maybe 10 minutes at most, basically trying to stock stuff my work. So she runs off, goes to her office, and lucky enough, Iruma is actually there at her office because he had basically had looked like he had his lunch in the cafeteria. There's also this demon girl who actually really wants to talk to him, and every time she tries to, she gets interrupted. I know how you feel. When you try to do something, you keep getting constantly interrupted. So, and we also have it where Azzy and Claire follow Iruma, and of course they see, oh yeah, he's interacting with the student council president. And here's the thing about Claire and Irumi. Like, I'm surprised she's not jealous of the fact that she's got bigger chest size than her. Because here's the thing. That's a classic Japanese trope where women tend to fight each other over their chest size. Yes, seriously. It's a common trope. Me personally, I think it's quite hilarious. Other women may not think it's hilarious because they think it's embarrassing to talk about their breast size. Yep. They think it's embarrassing because it's something people should not really be talking about in public. Like, yeah, like, I do agree, but if you want to do an anime, perfectly fine with me. Yep. So, that's where the thing ends. Any part of thinking, is that the end of the arc of the manga? No, because it continues basically with chapter 13, which surprisingly starts off the very next arc of the series, which is called the Cannonball Execution Arc, which that should be interesting. Discuss this one. Yep. Yep. So yeah, that's the particular review. Stay tuned for my very next review, which is going to be Shaman King. Yes, I'm going to try to get this done tonight, and hopefully get a chance to get back to watching this anime, because I am loving this anime, because it is so freaking good. Yep. Oh, and here's a little fun fact for you about anime this year that are based upon mangas. A lot of the anime this year, I would say, except for like a few, have all based upon light novels. Like you might ask, okay, what was the last anime I watched that was based upon, that was adapted from a manga per se? The last one was the case study of Antes. Yeah, and here's the thing. There hasn't been that many anime this year, basically, where they're adapted from an actual manga. I mean, the first one was To Love Ru. That was the first one. Yeah, that one, Super X Hero, the current reboot for Shaman King, which I'm doing a review for later. Eden Zero. You could say Hidden Dimensional Annotator, but it's also based on a light novel, per se. No, Thomas Nagaro. Why the Hell Are You Here, Teacher? To Live with Darkness. In case of Antes, I'd say that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I would say this is the 9th series. Basically, roughly half of the anime that I've gotten to this year are based upon manga. Almost everything else based upon light novels. Yep. But yeah, that's it for particular review. Stay tuned for Shaman King. Okay, next video. Bye.